You know what? I think the month of July owes me an explanation because this month, it was too much. And I would like an apology and a formal written letter. I would like to speak to the manager of July because I have some complaints that I would like to complain about. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jason, or as you may know me as Easy Cat. Today we're going to be talking about everything that I read in July, and spoiler alert, I did not read very much in July. I actually sort of questioned whether I was even going to do a reading wrap-up this month. Because, I often read, 5 to 8 books a month, and so we have lots to talk about. But this month, I have 2 novels and 2 graphic novels to share, so 4 books total. And so for a hot minute, I was like, maybe I just won't do one this month. And then I thought, that is so silly and stupid, because what do I always say? Reading is not a competition. It's not about how much or how little you read. Any amount that you read any month of the year is worth celebrating and worth getting excited about. And who would I be if I did not stand by that thing that I say sometimes? I'd just be no one. I'd be what? So we are going to talk about the 4 books that I read this month because, quite honestly, I enjoyed all 4 of them. I have quite a bit to say about one of them in particular, but I enjoyed all 4 of the books that I read this month. And life sometimes happens. So if you follow my accounts, you may know that I do a lot of different content. I do a lot of bookish content, but I also do a lot of board game content. I do some reactions to like One Piece and sometimes other stuff. And this month, as I was getting ready for this, there's this huge board game convention coming up. And as you're watching this video, I am probably actually at that convention because that is the magic of uploading things before you post them. What a world we live in. What will they think of next? And this board game convention is called Gen Con, and we go every single year. And in the beginning, we went because we loved board games, and we still go because we love board games. But now I do a lot of creating content in the board game space. So I go as a content creator with a plan of like meeting board game designers and publishers in hopes of being able to share their games with all of you and get the word out about their stuff, which I think is so cool. But in the lead up to Gen Con, there is a lot of work that happens. There's a lot of companies who have their games launching at Gen Con, and they would love a chance for me to show their game off on my page. There's a lot of scheduling that needs to happen. There's a lot of planning that needs to happen. And so I have been doing all of that all month long in July to the point that I just have not had a lot of time for reading. And when it gets to the end of the night, I'm so tired. All I want to do is just like play a video game and mentally check out for like an hour before bed. And so I just haven't read that much this month. And you know what? That's okay. Because sometimes life happens and we have months where we read a ton of books. We have months where we barely read anything. And it's all worth celebrating because the point of reading isn't to read a certain number of books every month. The point of reading is to enjoy reading. Right? And so it has been a crazy month. August, I think, is going to be very crazy for the first week, and then I think it's going to calm down quite a bit, which I am so grateful for because July has been insane. I've also mentioned this before, not in like a full-on YouTube video, but my husband, Carl, has also, this past month, he recently lost his job. And so that has also been a huge stressor on just us kind of like refiguring out what we're going to do. I actually now have him sort of working for me a little bit. So he's going to be helping me set up like a merch store and also help me to sell like the books that I've written, which is really cool. But he's also editing my YouTube videos. So he will probably be editing this YouTube video, and you can let him know in the comments how he did. And if you have any notes, make sure to let him know. You say, wow, what an edit this was. Please be nice. He's learning. I feel like I set that up for you to be mean to him. And actually you shouldn't be because he's learning and he's doing a great job and he's doing his best just like all of us. So please be very nice to him in the comments. But of course, unless he leaves like some really silly thing in this video and then we'll have a talk. We'll have a talking to, and you could report him to my manager, which I guess is technically me. We're talking to a lot of managers this day. This day? Okay. Focus. Everybody focus. Come back to Common Center. What are we doing? We are talking about books. Okay, let me show you everything that I read in I almost said in October. Oh my God. July is the month that we are discussing today. Please stay on track. I feel like you're very distracted today, and I don't know what that's about, but please focus. We have a task to accomplish here today. Here's the first book that I read. Okay, first things first, let's talk about the Stardust Grail. So this was the Easy Cats Book Club Book of the Month pick for for July. And also, I should mention, if you're interested, my book club is free to join. It's on Fable. I also have an anime club that is free to join on Fable. So we just, as of August 1st, will be starting our new book and our new anime. It's a great time to jump in. You just have to download the app, and then it's free to join, and it's free to participate in. It's really exciting. I also have a free to join Discord. You're welcome to join that too. Just so many free things. I give so much. Okay, let's talk about this book. Why don't we talk about this book? Does that sound good to you? Okay, let's do it. This book... Okay, so this book follows Maya, and she used to steal things for a living. She was a thief, but now she's trying to be on the straight and narrow, and she works for a museum. But then this thing comes in that is something that she and her past thieving partner were really looking for. It's a really important thing. It's a grail of sorts. And so now things set in motion that she is potentially going to help not only steal that, but get it back to where it needs to go. Basically what gets submitted to this museum is something that's going to help them find this Stardust Grail, which is something that they were searching for, which they weren't even sure if it was real or not, but now they have like a lead on how to get there. So she sets off on course to try and find this thing. This book feels a lot, even from the description, you might realize it feels a lot like an Indiana Jones story. And it definitely has that feel of like artifacts and, archaeology and all of that. But it takes place in space, and it is a sci-fi, like fast-paced sci-fi story. And I quite liked it a lot. I sort of wish, I think there's a couple things. I do wish that it had maybe had a little bit, like, gotten into the action maybe a little bit faster. I feel like the beginning, this was a hard book for me to get into. But then once I got into it, I was, like, really into it. And I didn't want to put it down. It was, like, very, like, quick. This book does a lot of things that, it takes that kind of Indiana Jones concept, and it does some really fun things with it. And I think probably the most striking is that it takes this concept of museums in general. Essentially, most of the stuff in museums is stuff that was taken from other cultures to put into those museums, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff in museums that shouldn't truly belong to that museum. Like, it was sort of taken by, archaeologists or people collecting things to sell to the museum, and it was taken from its original home, and it maybe shouldn't actually be in that museum. And kind of the complicated history of museums. And this book kind of dives into that, but again, from like a science fiction perspective. So we're talking about like different alien races who now have stuff that is important to their cultures, which is like in Earth museums. And it's like, but should it be there? But why is it there? How did it get there? Who put it there? Does it belong there? Maybe it doesn't belong there. And I thought taking that concept, especially in the relation to like an Indiana Jones type adventure story, was a really, really cool idea. And to that end, I think the way that this book approaches the just incredible amount of diversity in the universe, this is, when we talk about diversity in books, a lot of times we're talking about, different races or marginalizations are being represented. But in here, this book kind of takes that concept of like diversity and applies it to this really like universe, galaxy-wide system where we're seeing a lot of different peoples from different planets and how their cultures are and how they operate and what makes them different from humans and what makes them similar to humans. And I will also say part of the sci-fi aspect of this story kind of reminded me of Mass Effect in how humans start to interact with the greater like galaxy as a whole. It reminded me a lot of Mass Effect. So if the idea of something that is Mass Effect meets Indiana Jones kind of sounds interesting to you, that sort of is the best way to describe this book. I think if I had any complaints, I wish it was longer. I feel like the second half of the book sort of, to me, feels a little bit like a whirlwind. And I love the pace. I love that it had this great pace to it, but I kind of wish there'd been a little more. I feel like this is something that if there was like a second book, I think this is going to be standalone, but if there was another book in this series, I would absolutely read it. I would love to know more about this world. I feel like I didn't get enough time with these characters. And there are times where this also reminds me of, it's not nearly as cozy, so okay, but there are times that it reminds me of A Long Way to A Long Way to an Angry Planet, to a Small Angry Planet, A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. It took me a second, but I got there. Probably my favorite sci-fi book. and which is crazy because I couldn't think of the title, but that's fine. I have a bad memory, and you know that, so you stop judging. It had aspects of that, but also that is another book where I didn't feel like it was long enough, and luckily that is a 4-book long series. So I would love more in this world. I would love to see more of these characters. It does have some found family elements. It has, a robot that wants to be human. Like, it has a lot of aspects of other stories that I really love, and then it kind of all pulls it together in this really great book that makes all of it work together in its own special way. I liked this a lot, and I would recommend it for sure. And I really hope that there's more in this universe, because I would gladly jump back in and hang out with these characters in this world some more. Okay, the other novel that I read this month was Eragon. Oh boy. So let me, right off the bat, you see me laughing, right? And I feel like you think I'm going to say something horrible. And I have notes. But I actually liked this a lot. I thought this was so fun, and it really reminds me. It's like it's almost cozy. It's not a cozy book. It's not a cozy fantasy, but there's aspects of it that feel cozy. And I think I was talking to another booktuber, Mari from My Name is Mari Ness, and she said, in her words, what she said is like, it kind of reminds you of the fantasy you grew up with. And I think that really struck me. I was like, yes, that's it. It reminds me of the first time you read Lord of the Rings, or the first time you read The Wheel of Time, the first time you sit down in a fantasy world and you explore. And I feel like for a lot of people, this probably was the first time they sat down in a world like this and went on a grand journey in a fantasy world. And it has a lot of those feelings. And as I was reading it, especially the first half of the book, I really felt that in my heart. I was like, this feels like a little bit like coming home. It feels very much like a safe space. Like, I read so much fantasy, but at the end of the day, I compare almost every fantasy book I read, for better or worse. It often gets compared to Lord of the Rings, because that was the fantasy book that got me into fantasy. And so reading things like this that really resonate with that type of a storytelling just feels really warm and lovely. And even though it's not a cozy book, it has that cozy feeling to it, right? Like, it just feels like a safe, homey place. Okay, so as I mentioned, I really liked the first half of the book a lot. I think it was the second half of the book where things sort of start to go off the rails. I feel like we start going in a lot of different direction. Our quest sort of changes. Up until the first half of the book, our quest, we don't really have a quest. We're really kind of just on the run. That's not true. We have a quest. We're after the bad guys, right? Like, I forget what they're called. The Urgles? Is that what they're called? I don't know. We're after the bad guys. And we're chasing after them, but we're also like avoiding danger, and we're trying to protect Saphira. We're trying to make sure that people don't find out about her. We're slowly learning magic. We're slowly learning about these dragon riders and the history of this world. There's a lot of world building. I liked the second half of the book a lot. The first half of the book a lot. The second half of the book, things start to get a little windy and twisty, and it feels like suddenly the book is juggling a little bit, and it's like, oh, wait, I don't know what the quest is anymore. What's the quest? Where are we going? What's happening? It's almost like when you're driving down a highway, and then all of a sudden you miss your exit, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what are we doing? Pull up the map, what do we do? Where do we go? What's the plan? What's the plan? That is kind of what the second half of this book feels like to me. It feels a little scattered, and it feels a little lost in itself. And that's not to say I didn't still enjoy it, because I did, but the first half of the book really resonated with me, and then there was literally this point where a certain very important character dies, and from the point that they died, things started going nutty. And I guess that's kind of the point, right? Like, when you have a character that is such a classic fantasy character, which is like the teacher or the elder who is like imparting wisdom, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and you have to like figure out what to do on your own, it does have that feeling of like, what do we do? Where do we go? What's going on? What's happening? I think my biggest critique of this book is that this book has to be based on Star Wars. Okay, it just has to be. Like, there's no way that young Christopher Paolini didn't watch Star Wars, and I don't know that it was intentional. It's possible that it wasn't, right? Like, it's possible that he just really liked Star Wars, and like in the back of his head, like, he ended up putting a lot of elements into that. And also, I want to mention that Star Wars is just a very classic hero story, right? Like, Star Wars itself is so derivative that then this feels derivative because it's based on Star Wars, which is also a very derivative thing, which it's just like this, it's like trickle-down economics, except it's like trickle-down derivaration. It's a word, and it's fine. Oh my gosh, everything from this, like, young, like, farmer character, but he doesn't know his dad, but then they're on this adventure, and he's being led by this, like, Jedi guy, but then, you know, what happens to the Jedi guy, and then there's a character that shows up, which is Murtaugh, which is sort of like the Han Solo of the story. And there's a princess, because of course there's a princess. So many beats of this book were reminiscent of Star Wars, so much so that at a certain point, I remember being able to guess everything that was going to happen before it happened, simply because I was like, well, if this is anything like Star Wars, that character's dying soon, right? And then literally 30, 50 pages later, they were dead. Then I was like, you know what this is missing, though, is like a Princess Leia character. There she was. You know what? I wonder if there's going to be like a Han Solo character. There he was. I wonder if there's going to be like a big battle in the end. There. It's like there was so many moments where it was so similar to Star Wars that it ended up becoming incredibly predictable. Not because the story itself is predictable, but because I could tell what it was based on. And because of that, I could tell you every single thing that was going to happen in the book. And I was right every single time, which is a weird experience. It's almost like a bizarre form of deja vu. It was a little wild. But that being said, I think Star Wars Episode 4, which is the story that I felt like it was the most based on, is iconic, right? Like, so it's not to say that it's bad, because if you're basing something on something else, at least make it something iconic, like Star Wars A New Hope. And so it was really interesting to follow along with this story with that in the back of my head. Now, I have not started Eldest yet, but I will I will be starting it next week, or when you're watching this, it's this week, but actually next week is, let's not do the time travel thing. I'm starting Eldest soon. By the time you watch this video, I may have already started it. How exciting is that? I'm very excited to see where this series goes. I liked the world a lot. I liked the idea of these dragons and these dragon riders a lot, and I want to know more. I want to know more. Oh, also let me mention, speaking of Jedi characters that drive me crazy, old, wizened, elder Jedi characters, can we talk about Braum for a minute? Because Braum is so the case of, if you would just have explained everything from the beginning, we could have saved a whole lot of time and a whole lot of problems. Braum just refuses to tell Eragon the truth until it's pretty much too late. And if he had just started from the beginning with like, hey, this is me, this is who I am, this is who I was, this is what I did. Oh my God, we could have saved so much time. Things could have gone so much smoother. And in the end, I ultimately just didn't feel like there was any really great reason for him to not tell Eragon all of that information sooner. I think that's the problem. Something that we've talked about this before, the miscommunication trope, or the like just talk to each other trope, drives me nutty. And I think sometimes I'll let it fly, but I think where it drives me nutty is when it doesn't feel justified to not have a discussion. You are on the road. Listen here, Bromerson Brown of the Westchester Bromersons. You are on the road with this young man who is a dragon rider with a full-on dragon, and you are keeping to yourself that you used to be one? That's insane. I'm sorry, but that is insane. He flat out says, like, Eragon says, how do you know all this? And Braum is just like, I just know things. I'm an old man who travels the land, so I just have information in my head. Shut up. Tell him why you know all these things. And then by the time it's too late, he's like, oh, by the way, I was a dragon rider. Like, are you kidding me right now? Are you actually so unserious? That drove me crazy. That was probably the biggest thing about this book that drove me crazy is like Braum could have saved us so much time, and also he should have just been honest with Eragon from the start, because like you were going to tell him anyway. He needs that information. It's not like you were hiding it very well. Oh, yeah, I actually know everything there is to know about Dragon Riders. I know all the magic spells they used. I know everything about dragons. Let me tell you all the information, but when you ask me how I know it, I'm just like, oh, I'm an old man. I just know things. Just, what? Just tell him. That annoyed me so much, okay? And I know, at this point, I should have said spoiler warning like 10 minutes ago, but you're here now, right? We're in this together. But at the point when Braum died, I remember being like, good. Get out of here. I'm done with you. Because I was so frustrated that he wouldn't just tell Eragon these things. I mean, I knew it the whole time. I'm like, oh, he's a dragon rider, right? But Eragon, of course, poor sweet little Eragon, not that sweet, kind of a brat, but poor little Eragon, who's just in this world trying to figure things out, riding a dragon, is just he trusts he's so trusting. And over here, Braum is just liar McLiarson. That's not good. I don't like that. So when he died, I was like, get out of here. On to the next. We better. And then Murtagh showed up and I'm like, perfect. This seems like we're on a better track. Let's follow this guy for a while. I don't know if I fully believe that Murtagh would just join up with Eragon though. That felt really rushed to me. It was like, hey, we're both here in this book. We should hang out together. That's kind of how it felt to me. Like, oh, hey, bye. Oh, you know what? We're here. I'm on this road. You're on this road. We both have, like, main character, like, names. Why don't we chill for a bit? That was, like, the reasoning. Sure, fine, okay, I can go along with it. And then I want to mention one last thing, and if you watched my shorts, you know I've already talked about this, but we have to talk about it. We must talk about it. Saphira's voice in the audiobook sounds like Cookie Monster. I'm sorry, but it does. And I want to point out, I'm not super mad about it, okay? Some people have left comments on my videos acting like I'm like so angry and upset about it. It's funny when you post anything on the internet, people are like, wow, you're so mad. I'm not mad. I'm making an observation, which last I checked is allowed by the Constitution. That might not be true. Who knows? I think it actually makes a lot of sense that she sounds like Cookie Monster. And here's why. When Eragon first meets Saphira, he is trying to give Saphira a name. Like when Saphira comes out of her shell and is like, he's trying to give her names, and he's giving her all these boy names, and she's like, Rrr. So finally he realizes she's a girl and gives her a girl name. So I think it makes sense that her voice is a little like, because Eragon does not know off the bat that she is a girl dragon, right? And so I think it's okay that element is there, that her voice is like dragony. And also she is a dragon, right? Like if I went and talked to a lion and the lion had a voice, I wouldn't expect the lion to sound like Beyonce, like a girl lion. I wouldn't expect that. I would expect a lion to sound like, because that's what lions sound like when they talk normally. Is that what lions sound like when they talk normally? There's a lion in One Piece named Richie, and literally that's what he sounds like when he talks. He's like, he sounds like Scooby-Doo. So now in my head, that's what all lions sound like. So when I meet a lion in real life, which is sure to happen at some point, because I live in Florida, and as you know, there are lots of lions here, roaming the streets of Disney World, I will inevitably talk to them in that way, and they will understand every word that I have to say, and we'll have a lovely conversation. What are we talking about? Oh, right. So, Seraphina, the other thing, this is ridiculous. The other thing that I want to tell you about is that the werecat sounds like Yoda. And so as I was having this like, wow, this is so much like Star Wars moment, and then the werecat is like, I'm a werecat. That was such a bad Yoda impression. I can do better. I won't, but I can. I'm a werecat. That's better. That's what it's... That's what it should have sounded like in the beginning. Okay, the werecat sounds like Yoda. Sephiroth sounds like the Cookie Monster, and... that's where we're at, okay? And now we're off on another adventure with Eragon and the crew. And we're off to, there's like a scary voice that spoke to Eragon at the end of this book, and now we're off to figure out where the scary voice came from. And I, for one, am excited to see what happens next. I might not sound it. Based on this review, you might not think that I'm excited to find out what happens next, but actually, I quite am. I'm excited to see where we go from here. Wow, okay, my goodness. How are you doing? Do you need to go get some water? Because that was a lot. Let's talk about the 2 graphic novels I read this month, because they're both really good, and I would recommend them to you, even if you're not a big graphic novel fan. I think you'll like both of these, okay? So this first one is Your Letter. This, I believe, was a webtoon that they printed, and this is very slice of life. If you've watched the anime Your Name, I think you would probably really like this. This follows a young girl who basically stood up to bullies at her school, and it ended up just going horribly for her. So now she's moved to another school, and she finds a letter attached to the desk she's at that is from someone that used to sit in that seat. And this letter sends her on a scavenger hunt to find more letters throughout her new school. And these letters are kind of teaching her about the other teachers and about the other students and all of these things about the school. As we go, we learn more about the other students. In particular, we learn more about one other student, and then we slowly start to learn about the person who left the letters and their relationship to the person that she starts to become friends with at this school. And it all has this really cool, like, everything is connected through this scavenger hunt feel. And it's got a really beautiful ending. I'm not going to spoil it for you because I do think it is an ending worth not spoiling. But it is very beautiful, and it wraps up in just this incredibly heartwarming, lovely way. I liked this a lot. This is very much just one of those stories of like young people finding each other and young people finding support in each other and young people discovering what they love about themselves and what they love about the people they decide to surround themselves with. The book does explore some aspects of bullying, so I will mention that. It is never so intense that I was like, whoa. But there are moments where I was like, oh, this is a lot. Because the book is kind of exploring the aspect of like bullying to a degree that kids feel like they need to move to another school. So there is that, but it is not the centerpiece of the story. I've read a lot of, especially like in Japanese literature, interestingly enough, I've read a lot of stuff where bullying is like kind of the centerpiece. This is sort of an element of the story that kind of sets things in motion and does play an important role, but it is not the main part of the story is this scavenger hunt and these characters like discovering each other and discovering their relationships to each other and discovering kind of the wonder that is just life. And I really loved this a lot. It was so beautiful. I read it in a night, could not put it down, read it cover to cover, and I really loved it a lot. And I kind of feel like I want to read it again because I just want to. Also in the back of the book, there's a whole element about like a book that's been checked out from the library. That's where one of the letters is hiding. So they have like this little thing in the back of the book that I think is just such a cute little detail, right? I know, so many books have like sprayed edges and special editions, but to me, like this is like a fun, cute little detail hiding in the back of the book. So this was your letter. I do believe you probably could just read this on Webtoon. I don't know if I would assume it's still on there, or you can get the print book. The print book is absolutely beautiful. The art looks great on the page. And so highly recommend if you like Studio Ghibli type stuff. If you liked the movie Your Name, I think you'll like this a lot. All right, and the last book I read was, what is this actually called? A Tale of Two Knights, an Arthurian Love Story. Oh, look at that. Okay, so this is sort of... If you ever watched the show Merlin and you were like, wow, I wish these two characters would just kiss, this has aspects of that, except it is not about Arthur and Merlin. Though Arthur and Merlin are both characters in the story, as are all the typical cast of Arthurian stories. So you've got Morgan Le Fay, you've got Guinevere, you've got Nimue. The whole gang is here. But this story focuses on Tristan and Lancelot, and they end up having like a little thing. And essentially what's happened in the story, Merlin has gone missing. Morgan is like, I need to go find Merlin because I have questions and Merlin needs to answer them. And then Tristan and Lancelot are like, we will go with you to help you. But they don't really get along at first. And so as they go on this journey to find Merlin, all three of them kind of learn more about each other and kind of learn why each other is sort of in the situations they're in. Every single one of those three is kind of going through something, and we explore the things they're going through throughout the book. This is a one and done. Maybe there will be a sequel, but this is like a full, again, both of these are both of these are standalone. So don't feel like you're getting into a series or you're going to have to buy a bunch of books. These are both standalone books. Though I could see the author and the artist of this making more books like kind of in this same realm, like in more Arthurian type stories, but kind of twisting the narrative a little bit. So we follow the three of them and their stories. And of course, eventually they're on their way to find Merlin, and they find that there's a greater plot that's going on that now they have to work together to figure out. It's very like classic YA fantasy, and it has that Arthurian edge to it, which I think is great, is like having that Arthurian element to it. It does have that really cute, like little like YA gay love story aspect to it, which I thought was just adorable. It's done really well, and it's really cute. It's really sweet and cute and lovely. The art is really good in the graphic novel. I think also the writing is really good in the graphic novel. Like, I really came to love these characters quite a bit. The way I would describe the vibe of this definitely has like Avatar: The Last Airbender vibes, or even like Dragon Prince. It reminds me a lot of The Dragon Prince, which is on Netflix. If you've ever seen that, I think it's from the same people as Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's kind of in that realm. Like, it is a YA book. I definitely feel like it's a little bit skewed, a little bit on the younger YA, not middle grade. It's not middle grade, definitely, but it feels a little younger YA to me. And that's fine. And it just has, it has a lot of aspects of like standing up for yourself, believing in yourself, being true to who you are. Like, the most important part of like leadership is, helping other people and taking care of people. And it's not about titles and who says who you are and who says what you are. It's about what's on the inside and being true to yourself and being true to other people and being a good person. And I think those are all great things to have in YA stories. And on top of that, we had a really great art, really great graphic novel with just lovely, with just a lovely, cute little gay romance story. It's so cute. And I liked this a lot too. I don't think it's groundbreaking, but it was really lovely. And it was like a nice chill fantasy story. It was like not too dark. It was not super violent. It wasn't over the top in any way. It, like I said, it also, it's like watching Willow or, like those kind of things, like the softer, lighter, high fantasy stories that aren't dark things like Game of Thrones. Like, it's just very like light fantasy. I almost said light sci-fi. What? It's like lighter, calmer, chiller fantasy. And I liked it a lot. And also because I've had such a hectic month, it was nice to just settle into this really beautiful world and go on a nice little journey, a nice little adventure with these characters that has like a really cute, satisfying, happy ending. So yeah, that was A Tale of Two Nights. I love the title. But yeah, this was great. I loved it. That is everything that I read in July. So like I said, I only read 4 books, but I quite enjoyed every single one of them. I'm very excited to continue reading the Eragon series going into August. I have some other things that I kind of want to read in August. I have my book club pick, which we'll be reading. And then I have 1 or 2 other books that are not part of my bookshelf project that I might read that are like very short things that I just like, I'm kind of interested in. The other thing I'm going to start reading quite a bit in August is I am searching for the 3rd book that I'm going to publish through Easy Cat Press. So Easy Cat Press is my subscriber community. It is much like a Patreon, but it's set up through Bindery. So not only do you get exclusive content, but I am also using part of the funds to publish new books. So we have House of Frank by Kay Sinclair coming out on October 15th. Then next spring, we have Of Monsters and Mainframes coming out from Barbara Truelove. And then I'm currently looking for my fall 2025 book. So I'm going to be reading a lot of manuscripts over the next month as I search for that 3rd book to add to the Easy Cat Press lineup. So there'll be a lot of that as well. So I think August I'll have more time to read, but I think my reading is going to be very much divided between books and manuscripts of books that I want to potentially publish. So that'll be really interesting too. I don't typically make videos on YouTube about the manuscripts and kind of talking about that side of what I'm doing. I save all of that as exclusive content for Bindery, for Easy Cat Press members. So if you are interested in that, I will put that a link to that below, along with my Discord, along with my Fable communities. All of that will be down below if you're interested in checking any of it out. I'm so curious, how was your July? Did you read anything good? Are you excited to read anything in August? Do you have any thoughts about the books that I talked about today? Have you read any of them? And what did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts, your takes on Eragon, if you have read Eragon and what you thought of that. And I just would love to know how your July was in general. Was it a good month for you? Was it a busy month? Are you excited going back to the back to school season? Back to school season means nothing for me. I am not in school. I don't have kids. But back to school season is the very beginning of spooky season, which I'm a huge fan of. So I'm excited for that. Like I said, I'll be going to Gen Con the first week of August, so that'll be very busy. And if you are a board gamer, if you are at Gen Con, you see me, make sure to say hello. I would love to meet you. So that will be a lot of fun. But I hope you have a lovely rest of your month. I hope August is full of great books and you get tons of time to read and you find a new favorite. And as always, thanks for stopping by and happy reading.